coming at you live where the gridiron grows. This is the Alexander Scoop Jones podcast. Breaking down the GFL news coming fast. From Gwinnett County, we shine that light. Ton new football, every play, every fight. It's all about the kids. Every pass, every run. We suit up on Saturday mornings, yeah, we bring that fun. So huddle up, y'all. The whistle's about to blow. Let's talk GFL and let the good times roll.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're jumping into the really electrifying world of youth football. Specifically, the Gwinnett Football League's 10U division. That's for the 10-year-olds and under. Now, our listener, you've given us some fantastic insights from the Jamboree Weekend, you know, those preseason scrimmages. Super important for seeing how teams are shaping up. So our mission today is pretty clear. We're digging through all that, pulling out the key bits of info, surprises, little clues, basically building a roadmap for predicting week one. Think of it as like a shortcut for you to get really clued in on who to watch and why.
Yeah, it's a fascinating puzzle, isn't it? Trying to predict outcomes when these young athletes are, they're developing so fast. Things change week to week. In this deep dive, it's not just about the scores or the names. We really want to look at, the team dynamics, the story starting to form, what these first games might hint at for the rest of the season.
Exactly. So whether you're a parent pacing the sidelines, a coach drawing up plays, maybe a player yourself, or, hey, maybe you're just curious about how competitive youth sports works, this dive gives you a unique way to look at things like strategy, resilience, and just the pure excitement of it all. Let's get into these matchups. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We're going to kick off with some rivalries, the ones that just always seem to set the tone. First up, the Scooptastic game of the week. Number 5, Lawrenceville-Black hosting number 4, Buford-Green. Now, the word is, these two, they clash like it's a holiday tradition. Regular season, playoffs, boom, they find each other. What jumps out at you about this one? What does that history tell us for week one?
Well, what's fascinating, even at this age group, is how much that history weighs. The source material points out something crucial. When it's close, the nights close. And that's more than just a stat, right? It says a lot about composure, about execution when things get tight. For a 10U team to consistently do that, it often points to disciplined coaching, maybe good communication under pressure, or maybe just a core group that really trusts each other. It builds this belief, they know how to win close ones.
That ability to close is huge, a really strong sign. And based on that, our prediction here is Lawrenceville by 6. Tight one. Okay, moving on. Another one with history. Dacula versus Grayson-Gold. This was apparently a 1-point thriller last season. Yeah. Wow, you can just feel the tension already for the rematch.
Oh, yeah. And the narrative writes itself, doesn't it? Revenge is a dish best served gold. That's powerful motivation for Grayson-Gold. In youth sports, especially, those super narrow losses, they stick with you. They fuel this intense desire to, set things right. So these early games, especially with history like that, aren't just about warming up. They're about making a statement right away.
Right, making a statement. So for Grayson-Gold, the motivation is clearly sky high. And that prediction, Grayson-Gold by 6, suggests they feel pretty good about settling that score. Next up, North Gwinnett versus Duluth. Our sources, they said North Gwinnett looked shaky at the Jamboree. Didn't sound like things were clicking. But Duluth, their passing attack was apparently clicking. How much weight should we give those Jamboree takeaways?
That's a really good question. Jamborees, they can be tricky to read sometimes. On one hand, Duluth's passing game already clicking. That suggests they're prepared, maybe ahead on offensive strategy, good timing, good cohesion there. But North Gwinnett being shaky? It could just be early season stuff, right? Jitters, trying new players out, new formations. However, the prediction from the source is telling. Wildcats by a whisker. Duluth by just 1 point. It really hammers home how thin the margins can be here, even 1 point. There's that fine line, victory versus defeat. It teaches these kids so much about pressure, about every single play mattering right from the get-go.
A single point. That is wild, especially for 10-year-olds.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit, talk about the teams expected to really set the pace, the dominant ones, starting with the defending champs, Grayson-Green. They're on the road against Berkmar. The source calls Grayson-Green the standard for the league. So how do these youth dynasties, if you can call them that, keep it going? Is it coaching, development? That's a great point. Because standard in youth ball usually means more than just having talented kids this year. It often implies a whole system, like the source hints at. Maybe a strong feeder program, kids moving up who already know the system. Or maybe a coaching staff that's been there, done that year after year, instilling that winning culture early. And when you put that next to Berkmar, who had a tough 0-8 season last year, Well, the source is pretty blunt. We love an underdog, but not enough to lie. It suggests there's a real gap right now, which explains that big prediction.
Yeah, a big gap and a big prediction. Grayson-Green by 18 is what we've got. Looks like they're aiming to start that title defense strong. Okay, over at the Bird's Nest now. Sekinger versus number 3 Collins Hill. The source material really paints a picture here. One team looked electric at the Jamboree. The other looked like they forgot to pay the light bill. That's quite the contrast. What does that kind of difference in early showing tell you about team readiness, especially at this level?
Forgot to pay the light bill. Yeah, it's vivid. For a 10U team, that usually signals they're still working out the basics. Maybe new players fitting in or just not enough practice time together yet to get things flowing smoothly. They might be behind on fundamentals. Whereas the electric team, Collins Hill in this case, clearly hit the ground running. They've likely been working hard, maybe even in the offseason. Players are connecting. And that kind of early momentum, that confidence, it can absolutely set the tone for their whole season, build momentum right from week 1.
And that confidence shows in the prediction. Collins Hill by a hefty 21 points. Okay, next game. Gainesville versus number 9 Norcross. This one's at Cemetery Field. Interesting name. Neutral site. Apparently Norcross is coming in hot. They dominated 7-on-7 this spring. And the plan is to send the Red Elephants packing. For our listener, what does dominating 7-on-7 really mean for, actual tackle football?
That's a really important distinction to make. 7-on-7 is mostly passing, routes, timing, defense in space. No pads, no real line play. So dominating it means Norcross likely has excellent QB receiver timing, sharp route running, probably good offensive coordination for the passing game. Those skills definitely transfer. If their line play and run game can match that passing prowess, then yeah, that 7-on-7 success is a strong indicator. It builds huge confidence and suggests they're strategically ready for a big start.
Makes sense. And that confidence translates to the prediction. Norcross by 20. All right, let's switch focus again. Let's talk about teams maybe looking for redemption or facing those really evenly matched, hard-to-call games. First, Lanier Longhorns hosting number 6 Parkview. Parkview's narrative. Unfinished business. They sound still salty after missing the playoffs last year, but their QB apparently struggled in the Jamboree. So how much does that salty motivation really count for on the field, especially if a key player needs to bounce back?
Well, unfinished business, that's a classic motivator, right? Absolutely potent. Being still salty shows that playoff miss really stung, and that emotion can drive a team to play harder, dig deeper. But you flag the key issue. Does motivation alone overcome, say, a QB struggling early? The source does expect a rebound, which suggests the belief is there, that the underlying talent and team drive are strong. And honestly, in youth sports, QBs can shake off a bad scrimmage pretty quickly, especially if they feel that team urgency behind them.
Seems like the belief is strong. The prediction is Parkview pulling it off by 21. Okay, next. Archer travels to Lawrenceville-Gold. This one's flagged as a dead-even matchup. Both teams apparently have upgraded. Both are hungry. When things look this close on paper at the 10U level, what are the little things that might actually make the difference?
That's such a great question. Because these toss-up games, they're the hardest to predict, but often the most exciting. When both sides have improved and are equally motivated, it often comes down to execution, like we talked about before. Who makes fewer mistakes, mental errors, penalties, or who converts that crucial third down? Maybe who has that one player who can just make a play. Sometimes it's conditioning late in the game, or maybe which coach makes the better halftime adjustments. It really speaks to the parity in the league, which is exciting, makes these games genuine. Well, the source called it a pure toss-up, polite podcast lingo for flip a coin, baby.
Exactly, flip a coin. Okay, another neutral site game. This one's at North Gwinnett's Dog Pound Stadium. Mill Creek versus Mountain View. Mill Creek's trying to bounce back from a really tough, ugly 0-8 season. But Mountain View, Barstow says they just look too strong.
Yeah, this feels like a case of established strength versus a team clearly in a rebuilding phase. Mountain View looking too strong this early suggests they have some real solidity. Maybe consistent coaching, a good group of returning players. That continuity is likely key. And it usually takes more than just one offseason to completely turn things around from an 0-8 record like Mill Creek had. Mountain View probably has the edge in development right now.
And that edge leads to a pretty clear prediction. Mountain View by 14.
All right, let's build the hype for the final game. Our first Dynasty All We Need Is Unity matchup of the week is the big one. Number 7 Brookwood versus number 2 Buford-Gold. Everyone's going to be watching this clash of tight ends.
Oh, yeah. And what's so interesting here is that clash of styles almost. Buford-Gold is called a dynasty. Yeah. In youth sports, that means sustained excellence, a system that just keeps churning out talent and usually a really tough, maybe almost impenetrable defense. But then you have Brookwood. Receivers with glue for hands, a shiny new QB. That screams potent passing attack. So it raises that big question, doesn't it? How does a high-flying passing game, even with skilled young players, match up against that kind of dynastic defense and, frankly, overall team strength? It's strength versus strength, a fascinating strategic battle at this level.
It really is a true test. Brookwood's passing game sounds exciting, but like the source playfully noted, beating the Wolves, woof, it's tough. And the prediction reflects that challenge, Buford-Gold by 6. Close, but favoring the established power. So after digging through all that, what does this all mean for you, listening in, getting ready for the GFL 10U season?
Well, if we kind of zoom out and connect the dots, this deep dive into Week 1 gives us, I think, 3 main takeaways for understanding this level of football. First, those rivalries, they are absolutely real and they shape everything. They drive narratives. They make the games more intense right from the start. These aren't just matchups, they're chapters and ongoing stories. Second, Jamboree performance. It's useful, yeah, but it's just one snapshot. Teams adjust, players like that Parkview QB can rebound, and first impressions, well, they aren't always the final word. Teams develop a lot during the season. And third, the margins. We saw it with the 1-point predictions. They can be incredibly thin in youth football. That single point, it really is the difference between, heartbreak and hype. It teaches these young athletes that every single play counts.
Those are fantastic points. Really puts this opening week into perspective. So what stands out to you from all this? Which team do you think looks like they have the clearest path forward? Or maybe which underdog catches your eye? And maybe think beyond the schools for a second. What bigger lessons, about teamwork, about bouncing back, handling pressure? What can we learn just by watching these young athletes compete this season? Lots to think about. We can't wait to see how Week 1 actually unfolds. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into GFL 10U football.
Yo, it's your man, Alexander Scoop Jones, coming at you live where the gridiron grows. This is the Alexander Scoop Jones podcast, breaking down the GFL news coming fast from Gwinnett County. We shine that light, ton new football, every play, every fight, it's all about the kids. Every pass, every run, we suit up on Saturday mornings, yeah, we bring that fun. So huddle up, y'all, the whistle's about to blow. Let's talk GFL and let the good times roll.